Hi, my name's Dan Adam. I'm the Deputy Head of Technical SEO at RocketMill. And I'm going to talk today around how you can make sure that SEO is a priority in your business to make sure that your projects are actually being actioned and not sitting to languish in a backlog. This became a keen interest for me in my previous role at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where I was the SEO manager for EMEA. And it was there I really realised that as important as the recommendations themselves is the work involved in getting people excited and getting buy-in in that work and helping change the culture to get people interested in SEO. Now this is a key challenge for SEO in any business, but it was particularly difficult at Enterprise because of the nature of the business. This is a huge organisation. It's the biggest car hire provider in the world, has a turnover around 24 billion, 93,000 staff. But the history of it started in 1954 with a single branch, and it's grown to that level through a culture of promotion from within. So whilst all the employees are really knowledgeable about the business, they're not so knowledgeable about digital, and they certainly don't know a lot about SEO. So it was there I really focused on, and this has then continued into my current role in consulting with Dropbox in how we can better educate people on the need to embed SEO as a fundamental part of their business. And with SEO, you do have to go the extra mile and put in the extra work to get noticed. And the reason for this can really be distilled down into one simple, sad fact, that SEO is not particularly cool. And, whilst obviously Dom here and our team are pretty cool, SEO itself is not deemed that interesting or exciting to the layman. So although it delivers great results, as we can see here with the visibility growth for some of our clients, it can be hard for people that don't understand it to suddenly appreciate the need for a big project. So if you're dealing with, say, a product manager and they've got a big sort of traditional brand marketing or advertising campaign to support versus your SEO recommendations, all things being equal, they're going to pick something that's a lot more relatable that they can understand, and they're going to prioritise that. So these are the recommendations that I have found of most value to make sure that you are in the front of the queue and that you're gaining trust and buy-in within a large organisation. The first one sounds obvious, but it is very fundamental to make sure that the recommendations themselves are very clear and actionable. If you give too much leeway or too much room for interpretation or rely for too much legwork on a developer, then they're just going to want to work on something else where they have clear actions. So whether you'll be working with an agency partner or in-house support, it's very important that the recommendations themselves are actionable and concise, and they should also be tailored so your messaging is different to a senior management than a particular developer. And around the tailoring of that message, a thing that SEOs often fall into is getting too obsessed with search robots and thinking about how we can make a search engine better understand a website. Whereas if you reframe that and talk about the customer, it's instantly a lot more relatable and people will be interested a lot quicker. This was very evident in Enterprise, this was their founding sentiment by the founder, and it's very much reminiscent of the RocketMill ethos, as well as what we heard about Sky as well. And with these organisations, as with Enterprise, this isn't just a platitude, it's a fundamental part of the business. So every branch member in all of their 7,000 branches, their performance and salary is tied to a customer survey of anyone who rents a car, and on a system called the ESQI, which went on to inform the Net Promoter Score. So knowing that everyone within the business is obsessed with customer service, it becomes obvious that you need to talk in that language. So an example of that would be this problem statement, which is a true statement of fact. That is something we're wanting to solve, but by reframing that and putting in a bit more effort and analysis, we can make it a lot more simpler and a lot more compelling, and that can reach a high level in a business and they will action that straight away, whereas the previous way of wording it would still be in a backlog today. And another part of this is not just assuming that people will understand the output, so helping contextualize the work and what it's going to lead to. Something as simple as just mocking up a search result, which everyone can relate to, can make the difference between someone understanding the work and not. And at RocketMill, we always try and mock up the output of all our work, whether it be on a landing page or the output in a search result. And then backing up recommendations is also really important. People aren't just going to take your word for it that you think something will have an impact. They're much more likely to give buy-in if you give a trusted source, such as Google. And the good thing is, because Google is reliant on SEOs to understand key aspects of a website, they have the literature there, so you can use that to help back up your case. And segment and prioritize. Don't just bombard the product managers and developers with all of your problems. Make sure that you're working with them to understand the effort involved and factoring that in against impact and prioritizing accordingly and working from big to small. Because if you flood them with requests, everything becomes meaningless. And the most important one is predicting impact. If you're expecting a company to invest considerable resource and money into development, you need to put a forecast and revenue impact on that. And whilst SEO isn't as measurable as, say, PPC, it's a lot more measurable than, say, traditional brand advertising. So this is how you can stand out against challenging stakeholders who are also vying for that same resource. And this can be scary for SEOs because there's so many different levers to pull, there's so many different ranking factors going on. But by testing on small projects and building out proof of concepts, you can help it further inform and iterate. So something as simple as a footer link and the growth that will lead, you can then use that to forecast on bigger projects such as redoing navigation. And be adaptive. Don't just always focus on growing revenue through SEO traffic. SEO covers such a wide gamut, there's always going to be different factors that you're growing. And also, the landscape itself is always shifting. So you've got to make sure you're moving with the changes that Google are bringing. A big one is the growth in no-click searches. So here you can see the blue is SEO, red's paid. And the grey are people that aren't clicking on any website, they're just seeing a search result and going. Even more prevalent on mobile and growing. This is of course because Google is dedicated to being the world's most aggressive content scraper. And while we have seen great results for some clients where we have optimized for quick answers, where there's further context for people to go and read, if you have a website that has, say, a help section that has a lot of quick, easy answers, and Google has appropriated that, you will need to look at other metrics such as a growth of impressions and then hopefully be able to tie that to a reduction in customer calls to your help center. And then also make sure you're taking credit for all the work you're doing. So here's an example of one of our clients, the gym group, who are performing very well in map listings, and Google are mainly promoting a phone call. So make sure that you're tracking that in some way and attributing revenue growth to that, because it may just be that you're not getting any credit. And then feedback results. As SEOs, we're always looking to solve problems and iterate and move on to the next issue. But we need to make sure we look back, analyze the results, and most crucially, share them with the people that worked on them. So by sharing these great results with the developers, they're going to be happy, they're going to share it with their team, and they're going to want to work with you more in the future. And with that, educate the wider impact of SEO. SEO at its core is around improving a site, making it perform better, and helping people get to what they need. So that's going to have an impact on all channels. So any big project you do, make sure you're looking at the knock-on effect as well. And finally, challenging the status quo. A large part of being an SEO is you have to be sort of diligent to the point of paranoia. You have to constantly be thinking about protecting the site as well as growth. So we're kind of always having to protect the site from itself, from regression, or being penalized or anything like that. And within a big business, it's always big projects that you have to get involved in and try and make sure that SEO is heard. An example of this at Enterprise was they acquired a company called Ateza, who are a car hire company in Spain. And they were just going to shut down the Ateza site within a week. And they said they had the resource to do 5 redirects. And I was quite new at the time, but I had to put together a case, again focusing on the customer, and I had to educate them that Ateza had 3 times the search volume as Enterprise. So Ateza was the brand people knew. I had to go as far as sort of mocking up the experience for someone and showing that over 70% of their traffic went to branch pages, which they wouldn't have redirected. And then if people were redirected, they would have just gone to an Enterprise site with no mention of Ateza. And then from that, we then were able to change that to a 2-month project and had messaging on the old site, as well as building content on the new site to help begin to gain relevance and understanding for Ateza on Enterprise. And then we had messaging to help educate the customer when the redirects took place. And because of delaying that and because of pushing back on that, we were able to have a completely seamless migration of 2 different brands into one. And this really, I think, sums it up from game developer, the guy who invented Mario. And really the key message here is don't let other people make you do bad work. You will have to push back on stuff and have to educate people that it's worth waiting and doing something well. And this may seem dramatic, but in SEO it really isn't. This is Avis and their visibility in the UK. Avis were the biggest competitor for Enterprise, and they did a migration, and obviously they treated SEO as an afterthought. Meanwhile, because of all this work, because of the trust built from these other projects at Enterprise, SEO was a fundamental part of the informing the planning and the building of the new site and rolling out that migration. And that migration happened on the same CMS, and the site was actually built by the same developer as Avis. But this really demonstrates that SEO isn't just a tactic, it's not something to be brought in to a project. It is a crucial part of all activity on a website and should be part of the overall strategy and underpin everything you do. With all of that, and with these recommendations, you'll find that you no longer have to kind of scratch around or sort of nag to be involved. People will want you to be involved, and you'll suddenly be brought into different projects, and people will want to work with you. And as an in-house SEO, you'll find yourself involved in all kinds of strange, different avenues that might not have much to do with SEO, such as spending the night with a football cup. Thank you.